My name is Paisley Carter, 37 years old, an internal accounting specialist at a financial corporation headquartered in Austin, Texas. From the outside, everyone probably thinks I'm a happy woman. A solid career, a charming house in a quiet neighborhood, and a husband many admire. Brandon Carter, 40 years old, a renowned attorney at one of the city's top law firms. But all of that is just a glamorous facade hiding the harsh reality I'm about to face. That day started like any other. I sat in my home office, surrounded by awards and certificates my husband and I once proudly hung on the walls. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the window, casting a soft golden glow over my desk. I was reviewing financial reports for a company project when my phone vibrated. On the screen was a message notification from an unfamiliar Instagram account. Camilla J_23. The message appeared word for word, making my heart stop. "He's about to leave you and take all the money. Here's what you need to know." I gripped the phone tightly, feeling the chill sink into my chest. Instead of opening the message right away, I looked up at our wedding photos on the wall, where Brandon smiled brightly, his arm wrapped lovingly around my shoulder. 14 years of marriage. 14 years of standing behind him, supporting his every step up the ladder, believing in the vows we once exchanged. I took a deep breath, reminding myself to stay calm. My fingers moved lightly over the laptop keyboard, logging into the bank account, the account I had quietly opened 3 months earlier, transferring small amounts from our joint funds after noticing Brandon's strange spending. Every dollar, every cent I gathered wasn't out of greed, but because my instincts told me something was deeply wrong. I looked at the screen. The balance was safe in my private account. Everything was ready. Only then did I open that message. 4 photos appeared on the screen. Brandon, the man I once loved more than myself, in the arms of a young woman with sleek black hair and sharp features. They were together in a hotel room I recognized instantly, the presidential suite at the Grand Oak Ridge, the place he once promised to take me for our 15th anniversary. I didn't cry. Instead, a cold, deep anger spread through me. The message came with a taunting line. "He doesn't love you anymore. We're starting fresh together, with the money he's saved. You should accept the truth soon." I set the phone down, my hands clenched so tightly my nails dug into my skin without me noticing. All those sacrifices, the sleepless nights helping Brandon review documents, the times I bit my tongue when he missed important moments for work. It all felt like my own foolishness. In that moment, a part of me awakened, the strong part I had long hidden beneath the mask of a devoted wife. I reopened the bank account, double-checking that every penny was withdrawn from the accounts Brandon once controlled. The money I had helped him build was no longer within reach of a traitor. Outside, the wind picked up, tossing the curtains and filling the room with the breath of the coming storm. I knew the storm had begun. But this time, I wouldn't bow my head and endure. I would face it, and Brandon would be the one to pay the price for what he had planned. "The game has started, Brandon," I whispered, my eyes fixed on the screen where every transaction he once thought hidden was now under my control. Since that fateful afternoon, my senses felt sharper than ever. I began seeing Brandon with different eyes. Every action, every word, every gesture became a clue to analyze. The late nights when Brandon came home with a faint, unfamiliar perfume on his collar, not the scent of his car freshener or office air as he claimed, it was a sweet, heady fragrance that couldn't belong to me. The woman he had stopped embracing when he walked through the door. Those weekend conferences he said he had to attend suddenly became more frequent, and oddly enough, never had a specific location. One time, I casually asked, "Where's the conference this time?" "Maybe I can help you prepare something in advance." Brandon hesitated for a moment, his eyes showing a flicker of unease before he brushed it off. "Oh, just a small hotel, nothing for you to worry about." I simply acknowledged him, my face betraying nothing of what I felt. But that very night, once Brandon was asleep beside me, I opened my laptop and began my real work. Years of accounting for major projects had trained me to be meticulous, precise down to the last figure. Now, that skill became my weapon to trace my husband's steps. I created a new spreadsheet, giving it the simple name, Family, innocuous enough so no one would suspect anything if they happened to see it. In it, I recorded every expense of Brandon's I could verify, from credit card charges and cash withdrawals to bank transactions. At first, it was just small amounts. $300 at an upscale restaurant I'd never been invited to. $450 at a jewelry store where I'd never received a gift. But then the amounts grew. $1,200 at the Madison Hotel? $1,700 in unexplained cash withdrawals? All within 2 weeks. One night, when Brandon said he had to stay late at the office to prepare for an important case, I quietly drove to his building. The place was almost entirely dark, with only a few lights on in the lower floors where the security guards were stationed. Brandon's car was nowhere in the parking lot. I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, feeling my heartbeat pounding in my chest. Back home, I didn't confront him. Instead, I kept recording, adding new evidence to the spreadsheet. I began accessing Brandon's credit card history, an easy task for me since I had long handled our family's billing and payments. Beneath the polished exterior of a successful husband was a trail of transactions that only a fool would think could escape my notice. Dinners for two at Austin's most luxurious spots, rooms at high-extent hotels right in the city, increasingly large and frequent cash expenses. The initial doubt had now become undeniable truth. But I refused to act rashly. Brandon was a seasoned attorney, and I knew he'd twist things to paint me as the paranoid wife if I made a wrong move. So I quietly gathered evidence. Each night after he slept, I printed statements, took photos of suspicious transactions, and stored them on a separate hard drive hidden in the secret compartment of our bookshelf. Every trace of betrayal carefully collected, ready for the day the truth would be laid bare. There was a time I pretended to ask, "Have you been feeling stressed lately? I've noticed you seem to have trouble sleeping, seem tense." Brandon forced a smile, his eyes avoiding mine. "It's just work, don't worry. I can handle everything." That night, I watched him drift into sleep, wondering if my image ever crossed his mind anymore, or if I was nothing but a memory. Day by day, I peeled back Brandon's curtain of secrets piece by piece. I was no longer the wife standing on the sidelines of my own life. I was the one holding every link, every piece of evidence, every truth Brandon thought he could hide forever. And I swore to myself that when the puzzle was complete, I would be the one to unmask the traitor beneath the blinding light of justice and the honor he once claimed so proudly. That night, when everything in the house had gone quiet, I sat alone in the office, the glow of the laptop screen casting light over my tense face. Weeks of silent investigation had led me to a discovery far worse than I ever dared imagine. Brandon hadn't just betrayed me with his heart, he had betrayed his professional conscience as well. As I reviewed transactions, I spotted strange transfers from client funds under Brandon's management, service fees that didn't exist in any case file, transactions disguised with cryptic codes. But to me, someone familiar with every number and accounting symbol, they stood out as clear as day. Brandon had been quietly moving client money into a private account, preparing for what he believed was the perfect plan, to run away with that young woman, shedding all responsibility and leaving me with the ashes of what he had destroyed. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and pushed down the rising fury. This wasn't the time for emotion. This was the time to do what I did best: make a plan. That very night, I began backing up every bit of evidence. I downloaded every statement, every digital receipt, the emails I secretly accessed from the laptop Brandon often left on his desk. Everything was stored on a separate hard drive and uploaded to a secure cloud storage Brandon knew nothing about. Every piece of evidence, every trace of his deceit, was carefully organized, labeled, time-stamped, just as I had once helped him manage client files. I even set up a financial alert system. As an accountant, I knew that major banks offer alert services for suspicious transactions. I used old connections in the industry, quietly asking a friend, Ethan, a senior account manager at a bank, to set up secret alerts. Any transaction from client funds over a certain amount would immediately be flagged to me. Ethan didn't ask many questions. He just looked at me with worried eyes and nodded. "Paisley, I hope you know what you're doing." I gave a soft smile. "Trust me, I do." In the days that followed, I showed no sign of change. I still made breakfast for Brandon, still asked him about work with genuine-sounding concern, still played the attentive wife he expected to see. But each night, after the bedroom light went out, I sat at my desk, perfecting the case file I was preparing with more care than anything before. I gathered documents, compared figures, created charts to illustrate irregularities in the transactions. This was no longer the heartbreak of a betrayed wife. It was the mission of a woman claiming justice for herself. One day, while tidying up, I found a crumpled note in the pocket of Brandon's suit jacket. Meet Alex. Complete transfer. Tickets, Costa Rica. Confirmed. My heart turned cold. It wasn't just an affair, not just financial betrayal. Brandon had truly planned to vanish from my life, leaving me with the burden and the shame. I no longer felt confusion. All that remained was a cold determination. Inside, the pain had quieted, making room for a complete plan. The night before the party Brandon was so eager to host for his major client, the event he surely believed would be his perfect performance before disappearing, I sat in front of my laptop, my finger hovering over the enter key. With a single press, every piece of evidence I had gathered would be sent to the board of directors at Brandon's law firm, to the partner he was deceiving, and to the Financial Regulatory Authority. I looked up at the mirror, at the woman looking back with calm, resolute eyes. I was no longer the woman who once wept silently in the night upon discovering the brutal truth. I was the woman ready to close an old chapter and write a new one with my own hands and the mind that had long been underestimated. "All right, Brandon," I whispered. "The game you thought you controlled is over." That night, the party Brandon had so eagerly prepared finally took place at Aurora Heights Club, one of the most luxurious venues in downtown Austin, where only elite clients could reserve tables in the private section. The air was crisp, with a light breeze stirring the rows of lanterns lining the path to the grand hall, scattering the white flowers I had chosen myself. Brandon entered the room in a perfectly tailored suit, a confident smile on his lips. He had no idea that tonight would not be the night of triumph he imagined, but the night he would collapse on the very stage he built. I remained the gentle wife at his side, adjusting his collar before welcoming each guest. "Thank you, Paisley. Tonight will change everything," he whispered into my ear, his eyes alight with the excitement of someone who believed he had covered every escape. I smiled, replying softly, "I'm sure it will." The party began in an atmosphere of elegance and warmth. Candlelight glimmered over glasses of fine wine, soft jazz mingled with the laughter and conversation of clients and guests. I quietly observed Brandon as he moved between tables, shaking hands, raising toasts, his eyes occasionally flicking toward the phone hidden in his jacket pocket, no doubt checking for updates on the transfer he planned to trigger after the event. I arranged everything flawlessly, from the exquisite menu featuring perfectly grilled prime beef to the dessert of chocolate mousse topped with bright red berries. Every detail of that night was so perfect that no one could have suspected the plan for retribution I was hiding behind my serene smile. The gentle clink of cutlery against plates echoed rhythmically as the guests enjoyed the main course when the banquet hall doors suddenly swung open. All eyes turned toward the entrance as a woman stormed in, disheveled yet provocative in a tight red dress, her hair a tangled mess, eyes blazing with fury and panic. It was Yamalita, the one I had quietly prepared to appear at just this moment. "Brandon, you think you can hide from me? You won't answer my messages, won't pick up my calls. Where's the money you promised?" Camila's voice rang out, shattering the elegant atmosphere in an instant. Shocked stares from partners and guests fell on Brandon, the man who just moments ago had exuded confidence, now frozen, pale-faced. Brandon stammered. "Camilla, please, go outside right now, don't make a scene, I'll explain." Camilla sneered, stepping fully into the center of the hall, holding up the expensive necklace Brandon had bought her with clients' money. "Explain, right here in front of them. You said you'd take me to Costa Rica, didn't you? Said you just needed to get through this dinner to finalize the transfer." The room fell utterly silent. Heavy, suspicious gazes turned on Brandon. I gently set down my glass of wine, my eyes meeting those of several senior partners, including Howard Green, the head of an investment fund considering working with Brandon. His face darkened as he placed his napkin on the table, his gaze piercing the man now exposed. And then, just as I had planned, the partners' phones began to vibrate. A stream of emails had gone out simultaneously, containing irrefutable evidence of Brandon's fraudulent transactions, hidden accounts, and his escape plan. I glanced at the clock, right as dessert was being served. The chocolate mousse cakes were now nothing more than decorations for the collapse unfolding. Brandon tried to regain his usual tone. Everyone, this isn't what she says it is, it's just a personal misunderstanding. I'll take care of it right away. But Howard Green stood coldly, slipping his phone into his pocket. I think that's enough for tonight, Brandon. We don't do business with anyone who lacks transparency. He turned to me, his voice steady. Paisley, thank you for the hospitality. A night to remember. Brandon staggered as if punched in the gut. He pulled out his wallet, frantically flipping through credit cards to pay, clinging to the last shred of dignity. The server leaned down, his voice low but loud enough for all to hear. I'm sorry, sir, the card was declined. Brandon fumbled for 2, 3 more cards, but the result was the same. His face drained of color. Sweat dotted his forehead despite the cool room. I sat there, calmly sipping water, looking at him as if he were a stranger. The dinner he dreamed would be his grand leap before fleeing had become the funeral feast for his career and reputation. That very night, after the last guest left Aurora Heights Club, the air of luxury was replaced by the echo of ruin. Brandon, once the man who stood amid the crowd with a smug smile, was now a trembling shadow, pale and wide-eyed, looking at me and the partners as if begging for a way out. But it was too late. Every door he thought he held the keys to had slammed shut, one after another. The very next morning, the board of directors at Foster & Lane, the law firm where Brandon was a partner, held an emergency meeting. It didn't take them long to decide. Immediate suspension from all positions, revocation of all company accounts. I received a call from Richard Foster, the founder. Paisley, thank you for providing the evidence. We'll be forwarding the full file to the authorities. This conduct is unacceptable. At the same time, Texas state financial investigators launched their case. They contacted me asking for my help in providing all the data I had gathered. Files I had prepared meticulously in advance, organized down to the last detail. I handed over the hard drive, printed documents, emails, and notes, with the resolve of someone who knew she had done the right thing. Brandon had no way out. The colleagues who once praised him turned their backs. The law office where he once strode with pride locked its doors to him, security escorting him out like a stranger without a word of farewell. His desperate calls to friends and former partners were met with unanswered rings or cold, polite rejections. As for Camilla, the woman he had promised a new life in a tropical paradise, she disappeared just as quickly. When she realized Brandon was penniless, with no glamorous escape plan left, she quietly left the city. The last I heard of her was from a friend. She had erased her social media and moved out of Austin. Brandon had lost his final ally. The weeks that followed were a nightmare for Brandon. Investigators worked tirelessly, tracing every fraudulent transaction, summoning witnesses one by one. He was charged with embezzlement, financial fraud, and abusing client trust. Charges enough to bury the career he once flaunted. I remember the morning Brandon was forced to appear in court for the first time. He showed up in an old suit, looking haggard, his hair streaked with gray after just a few short weeks. There was no smug smile, no confident stride. That man was now just a defeated, lonely figure. When his eyes met mine, where I sat quietly in the back row, I saw nothing but deep regret and despair. But it was too late to save anything. Brandon's family turned their backs too. His parents, once so proud of their esteemed lawyer son, now avoided mentioning his name at family gatherings. His sister, who used to seek his legal help, cut off contact entirely, afraid of being dragged into the scandal. Brandon hadn't just lost his career, he'd lost his honor and his family ties. Each night, as I sat by the window of the house I kept after the divorce, gazing at the city lights, I felt no triumph. Only relief. That justice had been served, the truth revealed, and my years of effort no longer trampled. Brandon became just a name in exposés about financial scandal, a cautionary tale to the legal community that once admired him, and I, the woman once dismissed as the one behind the scenes, had stepped into the light, needing no one to lead the way. That autumn morning, as the first sunlight streamed through my office curtains, I sat at my desk and signed the final divorce paper. My new name was printed boldly, Paisley Monroe. After more than a decade bearing the last name of the man who once meant the world to me, I had officially reclaimed myself, free, whole, and stronger than ever. I kept the house, not as a trophy, but as proof of what I had overcome and preserved through my own strength. In the days that followed, I didn't rush to savor the feeling of victory. I knew I needed to begin a new chapter, not just to affirm my worth, but to turn the pain into motivation. One evening, at a small gathering hosted by Margaret Green, wife of Howard Green, at their home, I found the answer. Margaret, along with Linda Foster and Susan Lane, women who had quietly stood behind major legal partners, welcomed me with warm, encouraging eyes. When they heard me share my idea of starting a financial consulting and investigation firm, they didn't hesitate to offer their support. Paisley, it's time your skills were recognized in the right place. We'll introduce you to the people who need your help, Margaret said sincerely. Those words lit a fire of determination in me, and so Monroe Financial Forensics was born. A small office on the third floor of a historic building in downtown Austin. The nameplate was neatly mounted by the door. Monroe Financial Forensics. Fraud analysis, value protection. I remember the feeling that first morning walking into the office. Sunlight streaming through the glass, shining on the whiteboard I had hung myself, covered in plans and goals. My first client was a mid-sized law firm, a former partner of Foster and Lane, suspicious that a fund manager was committing fraud. Thanks to introductions from Margaret, Linda, and Susan, more cases began to come my way. Small businesses seeking internal audits, attorneys needing evidence to defend clients in financial disputes. I worked day and night, drawing fully on my accounting experience and data investigation skills honed over the years. Every case I completed left an impression of precision and dedication. Former partners who once knew me only as Brandon Carter's wife now saw me differently, with respect and trust. One morning as I set my coffee on the desk, the receptionist brought in a bouquet of fresh flowers. The small card read, "Paisley at last. Recognition belongs to the one who truly deserves it. Richard Foster." I smiled, feeling a deep pride that needed no display. It didn't stop there. I and other women who had once been quiet like me began building a support network. We organized discreet gatherings for women in law and finance, spaces where they could speak up about injustices they had faced, and work together to affirm their value in a world that too often favored men. I was no longer a shadow beside a successful man. I had stepped into the light. With a career I built myself with restored dignity, with the belief that sincerity, intelligence, and courage in a woman are never small things. And as I stood by the office window, looking out at the city's brilliant lights, I knew my journey of rebirth had truly begun. I still remember that autumn afternoon, standing in my own office, Monroe Financial Forensics, looking through the wide glass window at the busy avenue in downtown Austin. A light breeze drifted in through the cracked window, carrying the familiar scent of fall. A new person, a new journey, and a truth revealed. I didn't need anyone to protect or lead me. I was strong enough to save myself. Looking back, I had been the devoted wife beside Brandon, sacrificing time, career, and personal dreams to stand behind him. I thought it was love, responsibility, duty, but in reality, it was a subtle trap I set for myself. A trap called living for someone else. Brandon had once been everything to me. But when the truth came out, when his perfect mask fell, I realized the most precious thing wasn't holding on to a false family. It was holding on to myself. The road I traveled wasn't lined with roses. It was sleepless nights filled with cold calculation, clenched fists as I watched the man who called me darling reveal his betrayal, moments torn between anger and reason. But those trials made me stronger, pushing me to stand up for justice and protect what I had built. I learned that intelligence is the greatest weapon. Brandon thought he could outwit me with sweet words, with an escape plan he believed I'd never uncover. I, the one who quietly managed the family's accounts, the one he saw as support, was the one who turned the game upside down. With my mind and persistence. I didn't need noise or dramatic confrontation, just thorough preparation step by step, piece by piece, until Brandon was left with no way out. That journey also taught me that true strength isn't the absence of fear. It's facing fear and refusing to let it consume you. There were nights I lay on the bed that once held our shared joys and sorrows, listening to the wind at the window, feeling empty. Feared loneliness, gossip, pity. I overcame it all, because I knew that if I didn't save myself, no one would. In my weakest moments, I found my greatest strength. The day I opened the doors to Monroe Financial Forensics, I wasn't just opening a business. I was opening a new chapter where I could live as myself, do work I loved, and, most importantly, look in the mirror without feeling like a shadow. The thanks from clients, the respect from partners, the acknowledgement from the legal community, they were the answer to the question I once asked myself. Where is my worth? Now, when I meet women who are still trapped in roles they don't want, who feel buried under so-called duty, I always want to say, don't wait for someone to save you. Only you can save your life. Because no one knows you better than you. No one loves you more than you. I don't need flowery promises or fake applause. I only need the peace of knowing I've lived right, chosen well, and never let go of myself. And when night falls on the city, the lights in my small office still shining, I know the journey has never stopped. Every day I continue on, with intellect, courage, and a heart that no longer fears. From a silent wife living in the shadow of a successful husband, I, Paisley Monroe, stepped into the light through my own mind and strength. That journey not only exposed a traitor and protected my worth, but opened a new path, becoming an independent woman, building a career with my own hands and mind. Today I am no longer defined by the past, or by anyone else, but by me, strong, free, and confident in the future ahead. What do you think about Paisley's journey and the choices she made? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more meaningful and inspiring stories about family life.